Hey, Mark Davis joining you immediately after our Monday, July 15th, 2013 show, or as we call it, the Zimmerman verdict the first Monday after. The weekend was the time for the Zimmerman verdict. It was a Saturday night. Sunday was an enormous amount of analysis. Obviously took part in and absorbed an enormous amount of that on Twitter and elsewhere. And this morning's show Monday, with a kind of a day and a fraction to let this all play out, some of it kind of settled in my head, and I came out with the following prospect. I mean, obviously, we've covered in a lot of detail the notion of whether one likes or doesn't like the verdict. I admire the verdict. I am grateful for the verdict, not because I am white or because I am conservative. I don't care what the race or politics of anybody involved in this is. I wish I could say the same of those who are lamenting the verdict, because since clearly they have nothing evidentiary on their side, absolutely nothing, they clearly are driven by race or politics. There is simply the compelling need to have the black kid be an innocent choir boy and the white, partially white, gunman be evil. You have that racial angle. You also have a couple of political angles. Number one, the use of an actual gun. Guns are evil. Immediately, as soon as you have a gun, you are a bad person in the eyes of the left. There's much more to do with politics than race here, quite frankly. And the other thing was the notion of profiling. If you racially profile someone, if I were to see a black guy and go, he must be up to no good, that's a terrible thing. But if I see someone who actually is behaving suspiciously, it doesn't matter what race they are. If indeed George Zimmerman is doing neighborhood watch and seeing a suspicious kid, that's a suspicious kid. Doesn't matter if he's white, black, Asian, or Eskimo. He did exactly what neighborhood watch people are supposed to do. So anyway, as we came down to the bottom line of the Monday show, it was less about the past and more about the future. Will George Zimmerman find himself in another courtroom, either as part of a civil wrongful death suit from Trayvon's parents, or maybe a federal civil rights prosecution from President Obama and Eric Holder? I'm going to go no and no. I mean, I could easily be wrong here, but here's why I really don't think either of those will happen. Let's call it the futility argument. I think that everybody knows that both would fail. In the case of the president and the attorney general, they would love to have a successful federal civil rights prosecution, except they know that its success would be doomed as the state of Florida's case was in the first place. Not only is there if there's no evidence that George Zimmerman, no compelling evidence, reasonable doubt was hanging from the rafters from this case. If there's not sufficient evidence that George Zimmerman is a second-degree murderer, there is certainly no evidence, certainly no basis for affixing racial animus to it. I mean, that's just absolutely a fabrication. And I think that President Obama and Attorney General Holder, who's embattled enough as it is, they can fill their days by criticizing the verdict and racially dividing us further. It's what they do for a living without having to undergo the embarrassment of a failed federal prosecution. Now let's go to some people who I have a little more admiration for, in fact, a lot more admiration for, and that is Trayvon's parents. I cannot imagine their grief, and I pray for them every day. Nothing can bring their son back. It had to be a tough verdict to hear for them. They were not in the courtroom. I understand why. And I really applaud their restraint and class following the verdict. It has to be hard to learn that it is the belief of a jury that their son was probably the aggressor. And that's what it means. If they believe that George Zimmerman was defending himself, that means that what Trayvon did was attack an armed man, which is never smart. And that had to be hard for them to hear. I think they deep down know if their attorneys, if they are worth a dime of the lots of money they're going to make here and have already made, and I'll tell you why in a minute, they will tell them, guys, this will not work. This simply will not fail. I mean, this will not succeed. Al Sharpton can get out there, and so can other malcontents and race baiters, and go wherever they want on this. But if you're an actual attorney trying to serve your client well, it is Trayvon's parents' attorney's job to say, guys, it's time to heal up and let time heal and just let this go, because this will not prevail in a civil wrongful death lawsuit. One reason the parents might not really care that much about doing it is they already have about $1 million, maybe a little more, from the Homeowners Association. You might have missed this in April. The Homeowners Association for the area where this shooting occurred settled up. They were scared to death. They were petrified of let's say, a possible guilty verdict, which might have wound up costing them even more. Fueled with a guilty verdict, who knows how many millions they might have had to pony up to Trayvon's parents. As it is, they settled for $1 million. That's water under the bridge. So they've already gotten a little something to live on here. And I don't for a minute think that this is about money for them. I think it's about their son. And again, my every prayer goes to Trayvon's family. Nothing can bring him back. However, there is benefit to be had here, because in the final analysis, with a trial having occurred, I do not share defense attorney Don West's belief that the prosecution was disgraceful. And frankly, I don't need to hear freshly victorious defense attorneys mouthing off like that. However, what it was doomed. There were questions about this case, and a courtroom was a good place to get them answered. They were answered. Justice was done. In the final analysis, if you're going to have a tragic shooting like this, and there are those who are going to try to shoehorn a certain result driven by politics and race, and that effort fails, it is in fact a good thing for America to see such noxious efforts fail. They did fail here, thank God. The jury did look at evidence, thank God, and justice was done. I'm Mark Davis. I think we'll be talking about this for a while, maybe some other stuff as well. Mark Davis Show, 7 to 10 a.m., right here on 660 a.m. The Answer.